Hey everyone, welcome back to another Watcher of Realms video. Some people in my guild were asking questions about gearing, and I thought this would be a good time to sort of go over some basic mechanics of it. Those of you newer to the game might find some tips in here that may be helpful, and even those of you who've been playing a little while might pick up something too, or maybe even find something I said wrong you can correct me on in the comments. Been watching some of the videos by some of the other official content creators and picked up a few things just from playing the game. I'm a little over 60 days in myself, so kind of starting to get a feel for everything that's going on here. But unfortunately, like a lot of other, the content, those guys are far ahead. They've been playing for months and months and months. So not all of the content is sort of geared to players who are newer to the game, and you might be thinking about, like, they have certain things that I don't, or what's good and what's bad, like at my level. So I'll try and cover some things from a more of an entry level standpoint that maybe you might find a little helpful when it comes to gearing. A couple things I do have to go over first before we look at specific pieces of gear. Uh, and that actually goes into heroes. Not all heroes are created equal, and not all classes are created equal in terms of the way they use stats. All, all heroes are created equal in their base values. So if you go into details right here, and if I go into, I don't want their basic attributes. Let's go into gear. I think it's in here. Yeah, I can hit the little info button here. So basic attributes, those are consistent and unique across all heroes. Your person, your Calypso and my Calypso are exactly the same in terms of basic attributes. As long as they're the same level and they have the same promotions and things, they're all going to be the same there. It's the gear and the artifacts and things that make the difference. And then obviously this is any collection gallery bonuses you also get as well for your heroes. But the basic attributes are going to be identical. However, how those heroes use those benefits does vary between different classes and stuff like that too. If you have any questions, you can always go over here to attribute info, which will tell you a little bit more about what that particular stat does. And if you go back to attributes itself and you go to this details button, you can look and see how your values are being modified. And more importantly here, you can look at your attack interval and see just how much that like attack speed bonus is actually helping you. Calypso's base is 2 seconds between shots, but because I've got enough attack speed on her, I'm lowering that to almost 1 second a shot, basically cutting it in half. So she's shooting twice as fast. So that's where you start to come into that whole balancing act when you're starting to think about gear. Is it better to hit harder or is it better to hit faster? Ideally, you'd want to hit hard and fast, but if you can't do both, you might have to do a little bit of math and say, okay, if I give up 500 points of damage or 500 points of attack to get more speed to cut my attack time in half, how many extra shots am I getting over the course of a fight? Am I going to do more damage output in the long run? And that might also depend on what fight you're gearing people up for. A short arena fight or a short campaign or something like that might be different than a 4-minute guild boss fight where you're just doing shot after shot after shot, right? So a lot of different little things. And again, that's why there's not like a universal strategy where it's like, oh, just put this gear out and you'll be great. I mean, there's good stuff for sure, and there's good abilities and things. And it does come down a lot of times to attack speed, crit rate, and crit damage. But different things to take into consideration. Also, what I said earlier is that heroes use stats in different ways. If you go into skills, you can look at some of their things like that, and you'll see sometimes their attacks say different things. Like, for example, if I take a hero like... Well, here, let's go find a particular hero. Where's... Now I can't find them, of course. But certain heroes do take advantage of different values. Like, for example, some of your defenders will say on them, damage is based on defense. I don't know if Olag is one of those. Deals damage? No, I don't think he is. But there are a couple that do say particular things like that. Other examples with healers, right? You think, okay, with healers, Uh, grants attack-based healing to one ally in range. This is light lock here, and that's what his says. But if you go look at Vortex, for example, grants HP-based healing to one ally in range. So they're using different stats to determine their healing strategies, and obviously you want to gear accordingly. The same set of gear, you're not just going to interchange it and swap it between the two of them because it's not going to work right. Other thing to take into consideration when you are gearing a certain hero. So this one's more of an HP based. First off, all chest plates, the primary stat here is going to be HP. Doesn't matter what color it is. You can see right here, doesn't matter. They're all heart, 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 heart. It's all HP. Going all the way down to the purples, and if I had any blues left, they would be the same thing. All chest plates start, the primary stat there is HP. So don't bother looking for anything else because you're not going to find it. Conversely, all weapons base stat is 100% attack across the board. Maybe someday down the road they'll issue new ones, but for right now, every weapon is going to have attack as the first stat. So what you're looking for afterwards are going to be some of your secondary stats, and those are going to play in mind a bit more based on the hero you're trying to gear out. This one has double HP. This is great for him. It's got an HP bonus, an HP stat, plus an HP bonus stat, which is a percentage versus a flat number. This is a great piece of gear to put on a guy who's an HP-based healer. I would not put this piece of gear on Lightlock because it's only got a 16% attack bonus. I would want to find something that's got more attack values for him, or at least a higher attack bonus value for him. Other thing I do want to point out now is we're going to do a comparison between something like this that's a flat stat versus an attack bonus stat, a percentage based value. I said before at the beginning that all heroes have the same base value from player to player, right? That's universal. Those parts don't change. They're just based on level and things like that. They do vary between levels in terms of the overall values. If you go down here and you look at a level 1 uncommon, he's starting off with 167 attack. I go down here and I find a level 1 common, he's starting off with 170. So those are low values, right? Commons and uncommons. You go look at a rare. Well, now we're up to 300 base value. The higher the class, basically the more rare something is. Here's a level 1, 446. The base values are higher, and conversely, how high you can take those values gets higher. Giving a piece of gear that is a percentage-based bonus, because it's a percentage of what the base value is, not your cumulative value. Giving a piece of gear that is a percentage-based bonus, if I give him this guy a 10% bonus, well, he's getting 37 extra attack. Conversely, if I give that to someone like this person, she's got skilled up a little bit, but I don't have anybody who's completely blank to showcase as an example. But at a level 1 here, starting at 744, 10% bonus on that is giving me 74 attack. So double value there. You get more benefit of having percentage-based bonuses on higher rarity of heroes. And if you go all the way up, you're talking about some of these guys up here. Even this guy who's level 32 here, we're talking about 2,300. Probably not that high at level 1, but I wonder if I can see in the gallery. There we go. I can maybe look at here's like a level 1. Level 1 value, basic attack on 476 is kind of what you're starting at. That's a much better value than if you're looking at even somebody in the same class. Actually, let me pick a class that I don't have a lot of people from, so I'm not getting any other set bonuses from. Well, these guys are all epics. All right, we'll do the Cursed Cult because that's one I have the fewest people of. So at least I'm getting a very small value here. All right, So if we look at, we'll take this guy. It's a mage, hero details, base attack there. We're starting at 445. There's a plus 50 bonus. That's from having enough people within that particular faction. You get little bonuses for it. You can click this button here and see max level. At level 60, full stars, he's going to go up to 4479 for basic attack. Whereas if you go look at, let's look at a Lucas here. He's starting at 208, so nearly less than half. And even if you maxed him all the way, you're going up to 2253, so 2,000 less. Hopefully that illustrates that point pretty clearly for you. If not, feel free to leave a comment with questions. All right, so when you're looking at gearing different characters, different heroes, let's find somebody who doesn't have any gear on. You probably don't. All right, unequip. Always want to start with just the skills and just double check that their skills in here don't have any other particular difference in terms of what they're basing their damage off of. Like I said, in case maybe it's a defensive based thing or something like that. There's also a few people who say like they don't get a benefit from attack speed. I think Dolores is one of those, like her ability, her special ability, does not get a benefit from attack speed. So don't really necessarily want to put gear that has a lot of attack speed on her, because you're not really going to get a benefit out of it. But this particular guy here, we're just looking at his details, and I'm looking at, he's got a 2.6 is a fairly high basic attack, so I'd want to find something with speed to bring that down. And then I also want to try and find, as always, anything that's going to boost the attack damage, anything that's going to boost the crit rate or the crit damage. Crit rate does have a cap on it of 100%. You can exceed it. It will turn orange to let you know you are over the cap if you get there. Which means you can then swap some gear off. Even though that might be the best piece of gear, maybe you can afford to give up some crit rate because you're over 100% to get something different, to get more crit damage per se. So let's just quick equip and throw some gear on. Okay, so this is what it just threw on them. So we got a little bit of a speed boost, a little bit of a crit rate boost, a little bit of a crit damage boost. So crit damage, let's see if it actually tells us right here. Percentage of additional damage dealt by the hero when they deal a critical hit apart from their basic damage. So if I do 1,000 points of damage normally, and I hit a critical, and I've got 150% crit damage, I'm going to do the basic 1,000, and then I'm going to do 150% on top of it, so it should be another 1,500, so I should hit for 2,500. If that's the way they're describing it, so that should be the way the math works out on that. So when you're thinking about certain things too, and whether or not you can afford, if I find a piece of gear here that has, if his crit rate was, let's say 90%, or 85 or 90%, right? Like I'm close to 100. So most of my shots are going to crit. And I'm thinking about, what piece of gear do I want to add? Do I want to add something that's got a little bit more attack, that's going to boost the base damage he's going to do on every shot? Or do I want to add something that's going to add a little more critical damage? Again, ideally you'd want to boost both, but if you can't and you have to choose between one or the other, whether crit damage is better or not depends on your crit rate. If his crit rate's 26%, that means 1 out of every 4 shots is going to hit a critical. So putting a lot into crit damage, I'm not going to see the benefits of that as often. 1 out of every 4 shots is going to, I've got 200% extra crit damage. But my crit rate is so low that only 1 out of 4 shots gets that bonus. If I can't boost the crit rate in that case, then I'd be better off boosting the basic attack value so that 3 out of my 4 shots hit harder. Let's see what we got here. So this one has an HP bonus. We've got a nice, this is where our crit rate is coming from. Not all my gear obviously is leveled up and maxed out. We'll talk about that in a second too. Attack bonus, defense bonus is the last one there. So when you are leveling up gear, each time you hit a milestone, obviously every 4 levels you unlock a different tier. With mythic gear, with ancient gear, you've only got, I'm sorry, legendary gear rather has 3 slots. Those only go up to 12. Purple gear down here only has 2 values, goes up to level 8, and then blue gear only goes up to level 4 for when you're upgrading in the beginning. As you upgrade pieces of gear, we'll go ahead and do this one right now. As you enhance it, your success rate goes down. Enhance each individual level, gets you a little bit more to whatever your base stat is. And every time you hit your 4th level, every 4 levels you unlock your next stat. You can see right here what it's going to cost you. And you can see here your success rate is changing. It was guaranteed. Now we got to level 6, level 4, and it was high. Now we got to level 6, and now it's medium, which means every once in a while I'm going to hit that failure, and it's going to cost me more gold. And as you get further and further leveling up, your success rate is going to go lower and lower, and it's going to cost you a lot more gold to level things up. I'm just trying to get this to level 12 here. Now we got 11. Now we're down to, we hit 10, and now it went to low. And now we're going to fail some of these. We're going to fail several of them in a row. Okay, we managed to get it there. Cost me like 60,000 gold or so, 70,000 gold to take this to its max at 12. If we go back and look at this particular piece of gear that he is actually using, if I wanted to enhance this, at 12 it's still very low. Once I hit 13, it drops to tiny. And again, the cost goes up. Going from 12 to 16, on average, in my experience, costs 400 to 500,000 gold typically. So it can drain you very quickly. So that's why you have to be mindful of that. Definitely don't hit auto enhance because it's just going to keep going and keep trying. And if you happen to get some bad RNG, you can burn through 1,000,000 plus while it's just keep trying and failing. And then you're like, where did all my gold go? So be mindful of that if you are trying to auto level things past level 12, is that success rate goes down to tiny and it can be a little more challenging. For that reason, when I'm particularly evaluating a piece of gear, I like it better when the stat that I want to have a big bonus on is in one of the earlier slots. I wouldn't consider this a good piece of gear off the bat. First off, it only has one attack-based bonus stat. There's no crit, there's no speed, there's no crit damage. It's only attack bonus. And the attack bonus is all the way in the last slot, which means I'm not going to get to here until it gets to level 16. It's going to cost me 500, 600,000 gold potentially to get there, only to then find out it's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's like a 5% bonus. You're like, all right, well, that sucks. That was a waste of time. Now I'm going to sell this and not use it and get 40, 50,000 back. Not really a good investment. So I particularly try to prefer, if I can, when it has at least one of the 2 or 3 main stats in those first 2. Like this one is okay, because at least I can find out if right off the bat, if that crit rate is good or not. Let's just do this. We're going to auto enhance it to level 8. That cost me 17,000 gold. I got a 15% crit rate bump on that. That's not bad. It's not great. I'd prefer it to be over 20 and in the purple, but 15 is a decent enough number that I could work with, especially when you're trying to gear up multiple heroes. Probably not going to put this on one of the people I use all the time, but since I don't want to constantly be switching gear back and forth, some of the people that I use only for like faction trials, some of the, underdeveloped heroes that I don't really use all that time, this might be a piece of gear I would throw on one of them, right? It's got some, decent stat right off the bat, crit rate 15%. Sure, let's just get some stats, get some value. Probably something that looks just like this on one of these other guys. Because again, people I probably only use for faction trials are using stuff like that. Um, when something's a little further down, it becomes a little bit more of an investment. Now, if there happens to be, a smithing event, okay, you might push it to 12 to find out because at least you get the points for the event, and then you can sell it and get some of your money back to help you invest in the next piece of gear. But ideally, you'd like to find the stat you're looking for a little bit early on in the process. And sometimes you'll get a piece of gear like this. This guy's an attack person, not a healer. So this healing effect is kind of wasted, although from what I understand, healing effect doesn't really do a whole lot for healers either, or at least make enough of a difference for healers either. So some of the other content creators I've seen have said just kind of avoid pieces of gear like this. I kept this one because of these three stats that it had, and it was like, well, let's just level it up for an event. And if I got some low values on this, I would have sold it. But I got a 20% attack bonus and a 27% crit damage bonus, and like, well, that's at least worth keeping for a while. Somewhere down the road, I'll sell it, but for right now, I'll take those values. But if I start looking at some of this other stuff, I have to think about what hero would this potentially be good for. It's got an HP bonus, so it might be good for an HP-based healer, might be good for a tank. Obviously, you want to get those number up. It's got a nice defense value right here, and an attack speed bonus, and a rage regen. So this is a pretty decent right off the bat piece of gear, potentially for a defender or for a healer. You don't want your healers taking too much damage. You want them healing fairly quickly, especially an HP-based healer. And then rage regen if they have, get that ultimate out, do some type of AoE healing on it. This isn't a bad piece of gear to upgrade for somebody like that. If I come over here and look, okay, here we've got an attack bonus and I've got attack speed in that first slot. The rest of them aren't great, but I know at least if I take this all the way, because it's mythic, again, the values here on the base are capped. And what I mean by that is, if I take it all the way to level 16, that's going to go to 60%. 60% bonuses, rage regen 60%, attack bonus 60%. Like, it's going to go to 60% for an attack bonus if I level it up all the way. So that's not bad. If I get a decent enough buff off the speed too, well, now I'm getting quite a bit here, and then I'm getting some HP bonuses doubling up there. Could be flexible in terms of who I use it on then. Maybe it's another HP-based healer. Maybe it's somebody like a fighter who I might have crit on other pieces of gear, but I just, might need them to do a little bit of blocking, so having some extra HP isn't always a bad thing for somebody like that, Someone like Wrath, you're gonna use in an arena and do some, lots of damage, and he's gonna give a Lord who's gonna give a set bonus to all the other heroes that you're bringing with you. If he can soak up some extra damage for a little bit, maybe this could be useful. That's the kind of scenarios where you're thinking about. All right, what do we got right here? I got attack speed and attack bonus in those first two slots. Awesome. If these two values stink, I'm not going to go the rest of the way. I'm just going to sell it. Even though maybe I might have the chance that magically crit damage might be like, 25% bonus there. If attack speed is like 5 and attack bonus is like 9, those are pretty terrible values here. So I would take this, auto enhanced just to 8. What do we get? Attack bonus 3.5%. Attack speed 47. It's decent. You can see how far it is. It's decent. But with this low attack bonus, I'm not going to risk another, 500k to get all the way here to find out whatever the crit damage stat is. I invested about 20k into it. I'm going to turn around, I'm going to sell it back for 10 and just cut my losses and take the points for the smithing event. Let's move on to our next piece of gear here, right? This one's got crit rate right in the first slot. Enhance, auto enhance, level 4. Okay. We got a 20% bump on crit rate. Now I might want to start looking at some of these other values. HP bonus plus defense bonus. I mentioned earlier a piece of gear. I don't think I have this hero on this account, which is why it didn't come up earlier. Where is Jorge? there is a defender. I don't know what set he's in. I apologize. There is a defender. His name is Jorge. We're going to find him. There he is. Damage scales off of defense. And then he has a 30% chance of inflicting plague on other targets and stuff around him, right? So he's a defender who deals damage based on his defensive value stat. That particular piece of gear that I was just looking at, that I just upgraded there. Come down here and find that again. Did I lose it? I lost it. There it is. So, HP bonus, good, so he can take some damage. Defense and defense bonus on the same piece of gear along with crit rate. This would be ideal for a hero like him. This is perfect for him, right? He's a defender, needs high hit points, needs defense so he can absorb a lot of shots, plus turns around and turns that defense into damage with a high crit rate potential on it. That's what I'm talking about. Sometimes gear really is just hero specific, and you have to stop and think about the particular hero that you're looking to invest and upgrade in. I mentioned earlier talking about the difference between base values and like a flat stat versus a percentage stat. And again, you're talking about different rarities and different levels of heroes are going to have more of an impact with the percentages. If I go down here and I'm very, entry level piece of gear here, and I look at this thing right here, it's got an HP bonus of 20%, right? So this particular hero, Calypso, has 11,000. We'll call it 11,000. We'll round down, and it's a 20% bonus. So you're looking at about a little over 2,000, 2250. If I were to put this piece of gear on the hero, it would boost her HP by 2250. Versus if I come up here and I get something that just has basic HP and I level it up a little bit. Let me find one of the leveled up ones. Here we go. So this one I've taken up to level 12. Basic HP is 2370. So that 20% bonus would have gotten me 2250, or a flat stat here would have gotten me 2370. Got to do a little bit of math to figure out which one's going to work out better for you there. Sometimes, especially with the higher level heroes you've leveled up more, you've taken to 60, you've skilled up, all the way, promoted them as many stars as possible. You've gotten their basic level stats as high as you can. Percentages might usually yield to some bigger numbers, especially if it's in one of these secondary values. HP is, a big one here. Obviously, kind of hard to go with. If we go look over here, like say this one here. So this has an attack of 632. Calypso's base attack is 3708. If we just bring up our calculator right here, 632 divided by 3708, it's a 17% bonus. I would be effectively, if I put this piece of gear on, I'd be increasing her attack by 17%. Well, this piece of gear she's using right now is boosting it by 34%. So I'm getting more of an attack out of that. Now you look at a secondary stat and you see attack bonus 17%, and you're like, okay, maybe these things are actually closer to even than you wanted them to be. And obviously, if I continue to take this up to level 16, this number is going to go up higher a little bit more. So there's a lot of moving parts with some of this stuff. I know, it gets a little confusing. It's a lot of math. You can hit the quick equip button and just let the game pick it for you. Sometimes that helps, and that's good enough to go. But if you want to start customizing people for different events and things like that, for different codex dungeons or gear raid dungeons, or different waves, sometimes you do have to take into consideration some things that it may not want to build your hero around. Especially, for example, if you take a look at someone like in some of the AoE mages, right? Let's look at Zealous right here. Zealous is incredibly expensive to deploy, costs 25 to deploy, and the attack interval on Zealous base value is a 5. 5 seconds between throw and attacks. Now it's an AoE based attack, so he's hitting multiple people in the little circle around him, but if he's only doing it every 5 seconds, certain dungeons that's not going to be very good for. This is, and especially if you waited to accumulate 25 points to even deploy Zealous to begin with, you could be in for some trouble there. So this is why this is a hero who's perfect, and you might want to prioritize a little bit more on putting more attack speed on as much as possible to lower some of that stuff so we get that value down. I'm always in the wrong tab. I just have to scroll down further. That's the attribute info. Oh, I figured out what I was doing wrong. Certain heroes don't get a benefit from attack speed. I was trying to figure out why Zealous over here wasn't showing me the attack interval changing based on an attack speed increase. Doesn't get a benefit. Whereas you look at somebody else, like Aracha here, and you can see the attack interval was 2.6 seconds, but because of speed, it's being lowered. Maybe it's just mages. Let's go look at other mages. Nope. Attack interval is fixed. Okay, so certain heroes I mentioned before don't get a benefit from an attack speed boost. Zealous is one of them. Didn't realize that before. Probably wasted some of my time gearing this hero out wrong. Why do I have him in a Whirlwind set, which is getting a set bonus, giving a 75 bonus to attack speed, if Zealous isn't getting attack speed bonuses do not affect basic attack. See, just got to read. It's right there in front of me. So that's a particular set of gear that this hero doesn't need to have. That's another thing I guess to talk about too, finally to wrap this up, are set bonuses. Some sets do have some pretty solid bonuses attached to them, whereas others, the right piece of gear might not be part of a set that has anything beneficial. It might be a piece of gear that says like healing factor plus 25. And you're like, well, okay, I don't really plan on using it for that because it's going on a fighter or it's going on a mage. Obviously, stats trump anything else. Whatever you're going for here, go for it. Set bonuses should be a secondary benefit. If you're like, oh, I get a lot of damage and I can make it faster, okay, that's a win-win. Go with some Whirlwind gear. If it's not going to make it better, and you're stuck between, oh, do I give up my set bonus? It's like, well, what are you giving up? Well, I'm giving up increases attack by 3% and ignores 12% of their defense. What are you getting in return for it? Well, I'm getting an extra, 50% crit damage. That might be worth breaking up the set for. And so on and so forth. So obviously I got some work to do, potentially re-gearing this hero a little bit and taking some of this stuff potentially off, because attack speed is not helpful at all. And I wish I had read that. See, made a mistake. We learned something together today. And hopefully you learned something. If you liked the video, be sure and hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Leave a comment, any questions you have, or if there's other topics you'd like me to try and cover. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you around the realm. Take it easy.